Hey guys, so new week, new lesson this week. So we're going to talk about comparing decimals. Once we get through this week, we'll actually be in our fifth grade math book. Yay! So we'll be caught up. Um, so comparing decimals. So by the end of this week, you will be able to compare two decimals up to the hundredths place using the less than, greater than, and equal to symbols, and you'll be able to solve word problems involving those comparisons. Okay, so we're going to look at comparing decimals session 1 today. And you'll have a little bit of work to do at the end, and you have 3 IXL assignments this time. I know for every lesson we've done so far, you've only had 1, but this week you're going to have 3, okay? So they're all still in 4th grade, and they're in section S, and they're starred in IXL, so you'll be able to find them. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to look at this first problem here, and it says that Keely and Casey buy equal-sized bottles of water. They each drink some of their water. Keely now has 0.5 of his bottle left. Casey has 0.4 of her bottle left. Who has more water left? So I want you to take a second and think about this problem before we work it out. Go ahead and pause the video, work it out on your own, see what you can figure out. And we'll come back in just a second and work it out together. Okay, so we're looking at comparing decimals. So I know that just by looking, I have 0.5 here, and I also have 0.4 right there. So those are my 2 decimals that I'm going to be comparing, and it wants to know who has more water left, okay? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use our place value chart, okay, that I am so great at drawing now. You guys know that. But this time, instead of only having 1 section, we're going to have 2 sections, okay? So my decimals still go in the same spot. Remember, this is my ones place, and this is my tenths place. So just by looking at the decimals, I can tell that I don't need my hundredths place because I only have 1 decimal place, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with my 0.5, and I'm going to fill it in just like we've been doing, just like we did last week. So I'm going to fill it in my place value chart. So 0, okay, because I don't have a whole number, 0.5. So there's my first one. My second one, 0.4. Okay, so there are my 2 decimals. So now I'm just going to compare those, okay? And so remember, when you compare something, most of the time you're seeing if something's bigger, if something's smaller, okay? So you're trying to see if one thing is bigger than the other or if they're equal to each other. Well, just by looking at those numbers, I know that they're not equal because 5 and 4 are not the same. I know that already, okay? So I start over here, okay, with my ones place. I have the same number in both places, so I'm going to move on to my next place to try and figure out where I can compare it. So my tenths place is the only place that I have left, okay? So I'm going to look at my 4 and my 5. So just like when you're comparing other numbers, you're going to look to see which one is bigger in this case because it wants to know who has more water left. Okay, so we're looking at our numbers, okay, to compare the 2. So I know that 5 is bigger than 4, okay? 5 is bigger than 4. So that also means that 0.5 is greater than 0.4. Okay, so I'm just using what I already know about numbers, and I know that 5 is bigger than 4, so 0.5 is greater than 0.4. But my question asks me, who has more water left? Okay, so they each drink some of their water. Keely now has 0.5 of his bottle left. Casey has 0.4, okay? So I know that, who was it? Keely. This is Keely. Uh-oh, my pen's not wanting to work. Move it down a little bit. Keely, and this was Casey. Okay, so I know that Keely has more water left to drink than Casey does. Okay, just by looking at my tenths place to see which number is bigger. So, just to give you a little bit of a visual here, let's say these are their water bottles. Okay, those are their water bottles. I know they look great. Okay, and we're going to pretend like they're exactly equal. So 0.5 is about half. Okay. All right, so I know that 0.5 is about half, and 0.4 is a little bit less than that. So I know that this one has more left than this one, okay, just by looking at it. So let's go ahead and move on. Let's look at our next page, okay? So all right, so let's talk about these questions. So number 1 says, does Keely or Casey have more water left? Well, when we worked our problem, we know that Keely has more because 0.5 is greater than 0.4. Okay, that's how we know. All right, now let's look at this part. We've already filled part of this out. Okay, so you compare the decimals 0.5 and 0.4 to decide who has more water left. Suppose you have 2 more same size bottles of water. One bottle is 0.8 full of water and the other bottle is 0.9 full of water. So we're going to compare those 2 decimals. And first thing we're going to do is put them in the place value chart. So we see our place value chart here. So we need 0.8 and 0.9. So 0.8 and 0.9. Okay, so there's our 2 numbers. Now we're going to compare those 2 numbers just like you do whole numbers. All right, so remember, I can't do that one because they're the same number. I can't compare zeros, okay? 0 and 0, same thing. So I'm going to look over at my 8 and my 9 here, okay? So I know that 9 is greater than 8. So 0.9 is greater than 0.8. Okay? So C says, which has more water? The bottle that is 0.8 full of water or the bottle that is 0.9 full of water? Well, 0.9 because 0.9 is greater than 0.8. Don't forget when you're using your greater than and less than, if it's greater than, it eats that number. That's how I remember the alligator mouth, okay? Remember that's greater than. That's greater than, okay? So let's look down here at this reflect question. Suppose the water bottles were different sizes. Could you compare the bottle that is 0.8 full and the bottle that is 0.9 full in the same way as in problem number 2? So now, if you can see here on the side over here, we have 2 different size bottles. So the answer to that question is no, absolutely not. You cannot compare 2 things that have a different whole, okay? You have to have the same size, all right? So it either has to be one whole or it has to be the same size bottle or the same size pizza, things like that. So you have to have the same size things in order to be able to compare them. So my answer is no, because I can't compare things that have different holes. You cannot do it. You cannot compare them because half, like these 2 bottles here, half of this bottle is not the same as half of this bottle, okay? So you have to remember that's tricky when you're talking about would you rather have 3/4 of something or 1/2 of something when you don't know what the whole is? you could get tricked, okay? So you have to have the same whole when you're looking at that stuff. So let's go ahead and let's look at your homework that you're going to do. So this first one, you have this kind of grid looking thing, okay? And you're thinking about comparing decimals. So you're going to fill in each box. Use words, numbers, and pictures. Show as many ideas as you can. So you're going to have 6 different things here because you have 6 boxes. And it could be a definition. It could be how you think of it in your own words. It could be a picture. It can be an example. You can give me all kinds of things here that show how you can compare decimals. So then on number 2, so we're doing exactly what we just did. You're putting your decimals into the place value chart, and then you're going to compare them using greater than, less than, or equal to. Okay, so you'll have your place value chart filled out, and then you'll have your chart or your little circles here with your greater than, less than, or equal to in them. Okay, so let's look at the back. Number 3 gives you a problem to solve. It gives you 2 decimals, and then it asks you who has more of their granola bar left. As long as you work your problem out on number 3, you do not have to do number 4, okay? Because number 4 is literally asking you to check your answer and show your work. As long as you show me what you do in number 3, you do not have to do number 4, and you'll get credit for it, okay? So if you have any questions, let me know. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.